Yorgos said to me, please take yourself out of it. And he was right, because it's not about me. It's about a team that came together to make something greater than the sum of its parts. And that is the best part about making movies.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin-Lundberg, and I'm here with my right-hand woman, Becca Camerata, and my best friend, Riva Marker. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get through this.
We're not. But Riva I'm so happy to be here.
Riva and I can't look at each other in life or we start laughing, but this is going to be so fun because we're going to do the recap. We're going to do a recap of the Oscars. We're going to talk through the predictions that we did, Bex, which were largely right, thanks to Kalshi and our own instincts, but there were a couple upsets, and I'm so excited to get going. Riva Marker, such an esteemed producer in her own right. He just produced incredible movies, was partners with me for a very long time, was partners with Jake Gyllenhaal at 9 Stories for a very long time, and now is heading production at Linden Entertainment and has produced like a series of amazing movies there. I'm so happy to have you.
Dee, I'm so happy to be here. It is an honor. I love what you have built, and I have been dying to get here with you, and I'm so excited to deep dive on the Oscars and go through everything with you.
I will just say, like, one of my favorite memories of Riva, and then we're going to jump right into the Oscars, is a lot of, like, we had a lot of fun at pre-Oscar parties for Beasts of No Nations. That was, like, one of the highlights of our time together, although there have been many. But one of my favorite all-time producing stories with you is that we were making the movie Beasts of No Nation, and none of us were really able to go over and sit the entire time in Ghana with Cary Fukunaga, our filmmaker, because we were all like pregnant or like had very little babies. I was able to go for 3 or 4 weeks, but other than that, it was like we were really producing from New York, which was crazy.
I was pregnant. I gave birth, I think, 2 weeks before first day of principal. Amy Kaufman was pregnant.
Yes.
And I think you became pregnant like right afterwards.
That's right. Literally, Amy and Riva were not allowed to go to Africa because of the potential threat to the growing babies inside of them.
Yes.
But it was a series of crazy things where we were always trying to transfer money into Ghanaian banks because it was very hard to pay the crew, and it was very hard to convert American dollars to Ghanaian currency. And so I remember one day we were very low on funds, and it was a Friday afternoon. We had just gotten a wire or a check from one of our investors because that's just the way it was. That's how we rolled. And I remember hearing the tale of you running your 8-month pregnant belly to the bank, literally holding your belly so that you could get the check cashed and get money into the bank so the crew wouldn't quit. Is that your memory?
My memory is, because I was so large, running to a City National Bank with my large, extended, swollen belly, to make sure that Pete Pastorelli, our incredible line producer, was able to pay the crew in cash.
Yes.
And also the fear that, like, the check's not going to clear.
Oh, yeah.
The wire's not going to go through because why are wires so complicated to send through in the first place? But that movie, I mean, we were so young and so naive to just like run headlong into making that film. And I'm so glad that we did. Obviously, that movie means so much to me. But it was so wild.
And it's one of those movies, Reeves, you know, some movies you create a permanent family and some movies are jobs, you know, and no matter how much time passes, I consider like every person on that crew and my partners on that movie to be family. And it's true. Like we'll see whomever from that Marshall and, you know, and we'll just almost like break down in tears because it was such a difficult, amazing experience.
Sometimes and oftentimes in the best times, the making of a movie really does feel like an extended version of a family.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you go through these like crazy highs.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then these crazy lows, you know, where you don't get the cast that you wanted or your money falls out or you think you're going to shoot 50 days and you're shooting 25 or whatever it is. But I agree. I mean, I think that's like one of the things I love most. Like I love the team making aspect of making a movie. Like it's not a solo sport to me, or like it's not doing it solo is not what I enjoy about it, but actually the collaboration of all of these different people and different voices is what I love.
So Netflix put like literally $60 million into the promotion of us as a film. We were like the guinea pig for them, and they poured so much money into the film. And so we went to Telluride and Venice and Toronto, and we went to every award. We went to the SAG Awards. We went everywhere, and they really got Idris a lot of attention for that role, Idris Elba. And I just remember, I want to hear your memory of that night before the Oscars. But we rolled around as if we were like the coolest kids in school. And we rolled to these parties, and we would just like run in and just like be like, we're here, let's party. And it would be like Justin Timberlake and like Ben Affleck being like, who the fuck are these people? Do you remember that?
Of course I do. Of course I do. Okay. So, but what I want to say before I get to the madness of that night and what it felt like is, you know, it was such a big deal going with Netflix, right? Because we had other offers and other opportunities on the table, but Netflix, you know, really believing in Beast of No Nation and believing in Carrie and believing in Idris and what the film could be. I mean, I remember how sort of pained, not the experience, but how complicated it felt.
Yes.
To make the choice to go to Netflix. And what did that mean ultimately for, you know, movies overall, to go streaming, to not go theatrical, which is like still an ongoing conversation that we have now.
100%.
And I felt like, I think we all felt that that was a big moment even then.
Oh, 100%. Like we were making like this decision that was larger than ourselves.
We got all of their attention. We got, you know, we're not one of many. We were the one they decided to back that year. And so there's like something to be said for like taking the risk and taking the gamble if you believe that this particular studio can do what they say they're going to do. But yeah, we were treated like royalty. We were flown everywhere. You know, going to Telluride with this movie and then to Toronto was incredible for the film and incredible to see Idris and Carrie recognized for making it. It created, you know, Abraham's career. But to get to the WME party, I mean, the pre-Oscar night blew my mind.
Best night ever. We maybe went to like 3 or 4 parties.
We did. We tried to get into the Vanity Fair party. That didn't happen.
That was the Oscar night, though. That could be a whole other pot of the parties we didn't get into.
It's true.
But the parties we did.
Denzel Washington holding court in the corner.
Oh my God. That's right.
Right?
Denzel in the corner.
Justin Timberlake dance off.
Justin Timberlake, Matt Damon dance off.
Yes.
That really happened.
We
watched it with our own eyes.
Yes. Who won?
I mean, obviously
I think
Timberlake.
It was Justin.
Yeah. I in my memory, like Matt Damon took his wife home to put her to bed and came back and did a dance off with Timberlake.
What I remember most is the photo booth and everybody, you know, lining up for the photo booth and like jumping in there and remembering the night and all the drinks and the glitz and the whole thing.
Well, I just remember you had just decided to partner with Jake Gyllenhaal, and we cruise in and like he's talking to someone. We're like beckoning him over to join our crew, and he's like, these assholes. But like he did it. Came and hung out.
I completely forgot about that. We did. We rolled in like we owned the place, and we were. But you know what? We were so young at that time too, and so it is an interesting thing. The energy of like youth, and we'd done this thing that was really hard, and we rolled in, and we're really feeling ourselves, and it was so fun. And now it's like, I don't know. Movie making is still as hard as it always has been, but to be older, you're like, I don't know, there's something about the heft and the weight and the sort of legacy of these things that I feel more so now than I did, you know, a decade ago.
100%. But to like segue into the Oscar talk, the night felt like there was a little bit of a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the women's role in that changing of the guard. And maybe it's just one night only, and I'm hoping it's not. But what I felt was that Barbie and Poor Things, even though they didn't sweep like Oppenheimer, they had a great showing. And I think that the reason for both those movies happening are from producers Margot Robbie and producer Emma Stone. And that both those women have such a humility and love of filmmaking and are really doing the work, and they're not trying to take the spotlight. Again, it makes me emotional. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But those two women, along with, I would say, Reese Witherspoon, Dakota Johnson, there's a lot of women now, and they're getting shit done. Margot Robbie not only produced Barbie this year, she produced Saltburn, which was a movie that was not acknowledged for the Oscars, but one of the most sort of impactful movies of the year that everyone talked about.
Yes, so memorable.
And Emma Stone, I just heard a story about her producing the big movie that just got bought at Sundance, the Jesse Eisenberg movie.
Yes.
She made that movie happen. And it's not producers in name only, which we both know a lot of, who are big actors who take producer credits, but like they don't show up. And so I just wondered, like, does that resonate for you at all? Like very, very successful female actresses starting to take the reins.
It definitely does resonate. And I feel like I felt emotional watching the Oscars the whole way through. It did feel different. It did feel like, thank God, a throwback to something more genuine. It felt very authentic. I know you and I had actually talked about this, that just the past couple years had felt, I don't know, very disconnected from like the purpose of why we give these awards in the first place. So I think what you're proposing is super interesting. I mean, you know how I feel about women. I am like, I think women are incredible, right? And I think women are often the sort of quieter, unsung heroes. And I think it's really interesting to think about women who are in front of the camera and like using that power that they have in front of a lens and taking it behind and putting their strength, their opinion to champion filmmakers who might not have been championed otherwise. And I think it's so badass, and I think it's unusual. And so I think, yes, like I feel like there is like a genuine embracing of stories that are outside the box in a way that like are the stories we love. Like they're the stories that we've always championed, the things that feel the least obvious, that are like the hardest to push up the hill. But real talent like Emma Stone, like Margot Robbie, get behind and champion these filmmakers, that like incredible things happen. And I hope the feeling of like wanting to champion singular voices, it like reminds me, I thought what Cord Jefferson said was so moving.
Yes.
It reminds me, you know, when he was like, $200 million, give that, you know, make that.
Let's break that up. And by the way, these women, it's not to the exclusion of men.
No.
Like Emma is championing Yorgos Lanthimos, you know? And by the way, that happens to be a story of a woman evolving and finding herself and discovering like her power. But I think that championing that filmmaker, it's not like we're like, women rule the world now. I'm not that person. I'm just like, we deserve a voice like everyone else deserves a voice. And I don't like this notion that it's like girl bosses, it's all about women, it's all about the female story. I believe in just like equal opportunity for great story and great filmmaking. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm as excited about Yorgos Lanthimos coming up and becoming one of the great filmmakers as I am about Greta Gerwig. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And of course I'm so stoked about Greta Gerwig because I just think she tells great stories and she's a great filmmaker, and I loved Lady Bird and Little Women almost more than Barbie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I did sort of feel like the night was like, let's bring in some fresh blood here.
Yes.
And the greatest moments of the night were like from the next generation, I thought.
It relates to what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like sort of women and the next gen and the sort of vibe of the whole. I love camaraderie. I love community. And what I felt watching it was there was a lot of camaraderie in the room, you know? And that felt to me like it stemmed from Greta and Margot and America and Kate McKinnon and like
Ryan Gosling.
That's what I mean. It's like when Ryan Gosling gives like one of the greatest performances. First of all, I loved his performance in Barbie.
Oh my God.
I loved what he did with I'm Just Ken. I mean, it was so over the top and just so entertaining. And so getting to see everyone, it felt genuinely loving what he did, because how could you not? Like that to me is like, let's not pretend that we are too cool to like love the thing that's awesome. But I'm like, he's wearing pink gloves and a pink suit. Like he is going for it and I am here for it. And so then I just felt like, you know, when Emma Stone's dress pops open and she's like, it popped open during I'm Just Ken. I'm like, my pajamas did too.
Because we weren't invited to any parties. But we are loving the moment all the more.
Loving the moment.
Well, you know, it's so funny you say that, Reeves, because I do think there was a real era I feel like we're just coming out of it where all the cool actors had to do cool shit.
Yeah.
And they couldn't make fun of themselves really because they were like elevated and they were doing important work, and like it wasn't cool to do fun, funny, jovial stuff,
Yes.
right? And then somehow Greta Gerwig convinced Ryan Gosling to play Ken, and he did it. And it's like, it's the most important thing since I don't know what, you know?
The greatest thing ever.
It's the greatest.
Yes.
It's the greatest. And I was just like, maybe this like enters an era, which I've been hoping for, where like comedy is re-embraced as really, really difficult and really, really important. You know, I just made this movie, Goodrich, and the industry didn't quite know how to deal with it. They're like, Meryl Streep used to like be in these comedies. Like Harrison Ford was the sidekick in Working Girl. Do you know what I mean? And
Soap
it was
dish.
like,
Hello.
right? And
Yes.
those were the greatest actors. And they were like, comedy is really hard and comedy is really good and comedy is really commercial. And then
Yes.
for a while they like went out of vogue. It wasn't cool to do comedy or rom-com anymore. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Those movies are not that expensive and they're really fun and they're enjoyable and they're really smart. Like Mike Nichols used to direct the greatest comedies of all time,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And so I'm just hoping this sort of like enters, like we're entering maybe perhaps a slightly new era where it's like the great actors will consider doing fun roles again, and that'll be cool.
Yeah.
I am so grateful to all you beautiful people out here. For so long, I've always wanted to be different. And now I realize I just need to be myself. And I thank you. I thank you for seeing me.
I also loved that they brought back previous year's winners to present and talk through like their personal relationship with the actor they were
Yes.
presenting to, who'd
Yes.
been nominated, or just things that they had done, you know, in preparation for the role. You know, that Divine Joy wore her grandmother's glasses.
Yes.
I'm like, don't we all live to know that kind of behind the scenes sort of depth?
Yes, yes. It made it so much more intimate. I mean, it was a really brilliant thing. And also it made the whole thing, it reminded me of like, first of all, the great actors of our time. You know, like our business can tend to be a little bit of like lemmings where we're like yesterday's news, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I loved seeing Sally Field up there because Emma Stone was so inspired by Sally Field. I'm sure she was like, I'd love for Sally to present for me or something like that. Or even Nick Cage was like so clever. And I was like, I forgot Nick Cage was so funny, you know, like in his own way.
Yes.
It's like all these people have won these awards for a reason. They're so talented in and of themselves. And just because like our industry moves on to like the next cool young thing doesn't mean we should forget about how amazing they are.
I agree with you guys. I loved that it added to the sense of community that you were talking about. And I think that's why this ceremony to me felt really warm in a way that past ones haven't. And especially, or even just past award ceremonies this season have struggled, right? This one just felt like, oh, these people know each other and they love each other and they respect each other and they're here to celebrate each other. It felt like you were at almost like a wedding or something and someone was giving a speech, a family speech. It was really, really special. So I really hope that they keep that.
I do feel like that the celebration, the joy of enjoying it. And so, yes, at the PGA Awards this year, which were incredible, and
For which you were nominated.
For which I was nominated.
Give you a shout out
for
Reality.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for this movie Reality that this incredible filmmaker named Tina Satter directed. I love the team of people I made it with. They also felt like a family. Sydney Sweeney was incredible in the film. It was an honor to be there. And I had so much fun. And Martin Scorsese was honored, you know, at the PGA Awards this year. And he got up there and he gives this incredible speech about being there when he was in his early 20s. And he like talks through the host of incredible Hollywood royalty that he was up on that stage with and how much it meant to him as like a young kid breaking into the industry,
love that.
to be spoken to and to be embraced by titans of the time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, being in that room and seeing Robert Downey Jr., who I've loved my whole life, since
of the
Less Than
greats.
Zero, let's be honest.
One of the greats.
Robert Downey Jr.
Weird
killing-
science for me, but yeah.
That too.
So, but the big upset I wanted to talk about that Becca predicted, I literally was like, Bex, do you want to take this prediction back? And I gave her all the reasons why Lily Gladstone was going to win.
I love this.
And Emma Stone was not going to win. And Bex just held firm. She was just like, I don't know. I just think it's Emma's year. Bex, now that you were right, I just want to go inside your brain and understand your thinking. Was it just like gut instinct?
It was a little bit gut instinct. And as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Yorgos movies. They're just like not my thing.
Yeah.
But I understand that he's a brilliant filmmaker. I just thought that performance was, and I said it in the prediction podcast, but I thought it was weird in a way that the Academy would embrace. Like it was so left of center, but in a way that was still approachable for, I think, a lot of the voters. And as much as I think that you guys talked about at the top of the episode, that it did feel kind of like a changing of the guard this year at the Academy, I still think that I don't know if they were ready to give it to Lily. I just had a feeling they were going to respect the art of the like wildness of that performance. I don't know. I felt like everything was going Lily's way. I just didn't think it was going to happen.
I mean, can I piggyback on that for a sec, Bex? Because I am with you. It felt like Lily was going to win. It felt like the sort of deck had been stacked in her favor. I think Emma's performance was incredible.
Yes.
But also think you're in, like really, I mean, obviously Emma won, but like your instinct that maybe the Academy wasn't yet ready to like give it to Lily, or it didn't feel like it was her time yet, or that Emma is like, she's in the club, like, you know, and sort of it felt like the vibe of it was going to go in her direction. I mean, here's what I want to say. The person that I think deserved it the most, if I'm totally honest, was Sandra Hüller. And like, I thought that performance in Anatomy of a Fall was incredible. I thought Zone of Interest was a really complicated film. I found it very hard to watch for a bunch of reasons, but I thought her performance also in that was like insane. But I knew she was never going to get the win.
Yeah.
But then I wonder, like, if it speaks to like something underneath what you're saying in your prediction that Emma was going to win, is like it's hard to break into the club.
Do you know how many non-Americans have won the top awards? Like, I'm curious because I think you're right. I don't even think she was a part of the real conversation with that. Like, it was such an honor for her to be nominated
because she was foreign. I think you're right.
It feels like it's such an exclusive club to get into, and I don't know if like it never crossed my mind that she would win, even though those performances 100%. Were incredible.
I have a couple things to say. I think Emma Stone seems to be such an authentically wonderful person. And so sometimes you get this like Gwyneth Paltrow effect where it's like people actually start to dislike you for that. When Gwyneth won for Shakespeare in Love, I feel like she got a lot of backlash because she was like dating the perfect movie star, and she was so beautiful, and she wore this pink dress that no one will ever forget. And like people actually started to like, the
tide shifted against her a little bit. Yeah.
And I think Emma Stone, again, there is such a humility to her. I think that kind of thing, people just seem to love her. And it seems to be like, I've had one drunken interaction with Emma Stone, which I can't even tell on this. It's so embarrassing. But she was so kind and lovely to me in that moment. And it was post Met Ball.
Okay. I was like, I don't know this story.
I'm just going to tell the story. I'm just going to tell the story. Who gives a shit? I go to this party. My sister used to run the Met Ball. I somehow get exceptionally inebriated. My friend brings me out to the dance floor. I am dancing in high heel shoes. It is a wood floor. It is wet.
No.
The only other people on the dance floor are Beyonce, Jay-Z, and Kanye West.
Come on.
As God is my witness. As God is my witness, this is true. And my friend is holding my hands. And I'm like, Luisana, do not let go of my hands, because if you let go, I'm gone. I'm just falling backwards. She's like, you're fine. You're fine. She lets go.
Oh, no.
My feet go out from under me. I like crash to the ground, hit my head. I look up, and this is according to Luisana. Beyonce and Jay-Z are looking over me like, oh, girl. And like everyone helps me up. I like crawl back to the bar. For whatever reason, I take one more shot, and I see Emma Stone sitting by herself. And I go and sit next to her, and I can't speak. And I have Ted, Liz Banks, and her husband like watching from like 10 feet away. And everyone is just like, jeez, dear God. And Emma is trying to help me form the words.
No.
This is the story of my life, not the story of hers. And the words are just not coming. But she's so sweet. And she's kind of like, are you okay? Like in an authentic, lovely, nice way.
Right.
Slowly, I will never forget. Liz Makes comes and grabs my hand, my like elbow. She's like, Dan, we got to go. And she's like, Emma, I'm very sorry about this. Okay. I'll never forget it. Okay.
Liz was a hero. Okay.
Liz was a hero in those moments. No one remembers this but me. Even in my like drunken stupor, I remember this. Like, but I remember being like, that was a kind way of handling it.
Very classy.
And so back to the point, which is like, I do feel like Emma Stone's a real producer. She's like really, she is part of the club, but she's like an authentic person. And so people want to embrace her. And so it in a way, it makes sense to me that she won.
Yes.
The other upset, Bex, which Kalshi predicted and we just thought was not going to be the case, but I'm glad he won it because I loved Cord Jefferson's speech so much, was Cord Jefferson over Oppenheimer. I thought for sure Oppenheimer just had like most everything in the bag.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so huge Chris Nolan fan, Dunkirk, all the Batman series, like some of my favorite movies of all time, actually. I will say I did not want to see Oppenheimer. It was probably one of the nominees one of the last films that I actually watched. And I thought it was a masterpiece.
Okay.
And I wasn't expecting to feel that way.
Okay.
Because I felt like this is a story that I was familiar with, right? And I was like, how is one going to tell this story? It felt like a lot of men telling the story. Not that I'm anti-men, but I'm like, I don't know if like, it feels like there are other stories I want to be told right now than this one. So that is how I went into it. And I loved it. I mean, it feels like, you know, everybody loved this movie. So I don't feel it's like unique that I felt this way, but I really was so taken in by how he told the story. I thought, what an unbelievable achievement in editing, because that story could have been told super straightforward.
Yes.
I loved all of like the visual imagery of like the cosmos and all the stuff that like cinema is, that's not just the workplace drama that it was.
Yes.
I know this might sound so weird, but I loved like seeing Einstein represented. I don't know, that like meant a lot to me because I feel like we have this idea of who he was and like to feel the like pastiche of him as a real person. And then the way that like Downey played it as though, because I related to this like on a personal, like I try to take these movies that are like all up here and feel like how do we relate to them on a grounded personal level. But this notion that like this human being, this man, had such a vendetta against Oppenheimer based on overlooking and seeing what he thinks is Oppenheimer and Einstein having a conversation about him, that his like ego and insecurity was so ripe that like he then goes to take this. I just thought, wow, what a lesson in this. So I loved the film. I loved the way it was edited, and I thought it deserved. So I feel less like it was Nolan's time and more like his time met with a movie that was incredible.
Okay. My only counter to that is that was like, of course, Nolan is one of the most brilliant filmmakers working today. He really, like, his mind is like something that should be in a museum. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I love the points you make of like, that was a workplace drama that like he layered on so many amazing visual elements to. And like, that's true. But I guess I feel like I've seen the glory of his filmmaking so much more in some of the other works you've talked about. And so I guess that's why I'm just like, Oppenheimer's fantastic. He did such a good job, but I guess I've just seen it more in other movies. Yeah. But your point is well taken.
To the Academy, just to say, movies are just a little bit over 100 years old. I mean, imagine being there 100 years into painting or theater. We don't know where this incredible journey is going from here. But to know that you think that I'm a meaningful part of it means the world to me. Thank you very much.
Happy that we can finally put this Barbenheimer rivalry behind us.
That's right. Here's Ken and Kitty, just leaving all that fodder in the dust, guys, right? And the way this award season's turned out wasn't that much of a rivalry, so just let it go!
Wrapping up, what are our great feelings coming out of the Oscars? And Bex, I kind of want to hear from you first because we've been just yammering away here.
No, but I love it because I can't believe I started out with you guys 12 years ago. And, the majority of what I know about producing was me just listening to you guys talk for the first few years of my career. So I'm kind of glad I was sick today and could just listen.
I love you, Bexy.
I love you both. I love you guys. It really feels like, and kind of to tie back to what you were saying with Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer, it almost feels like that. I agree with you, Riva. It was like that story and that director at the right time. It feels like it was kind of like a real life story that was on the level of Batman or Superman or like a superhero movie, but it was real. And so he was the perfect person to do that because he is so ingenious with the way that he tells stories. And I think people appreciated the grandiosity of that film, right? And we talked about this in the predictions episode, that how Barbie and Oppenheimer really brought people back to theaters this past year. I think for me that the tide is shifting back to making films feel like an event again, and making it cool to go to the theater again. Because for a long time it was like, oh, it's too expensive. Why would I go see a movie? I'm just going to wait till it comes out and watch it at home. And I think people during COVID got sick of watching things at home, but we didn't have the films that really brought people out to theaters until this past year. And so I think I'm feeling very positive about the shift because those films that did bring people out to theaters weren't just Marvel movies. They were more significant, more impactful, and more complex than that. And so I'm feeling like it's a really positive shift. And in the same way that you were talking about women earlier, and one of those movies was written and directed by an incredible woman. And so that was, boundary breaking. So I'm feeling very positive after these Oscars that we're moving in a healthy direction where people are going to appreciate going to the theater again for real stories and really, really good films and good filmmakers. So,
Reeves.
I love all that. Bex. I also just want to say I love being here with you both. And I think it's incredible what you guys are doing with this podcast. And just, I think you're both incredible. I admire you both so much.
This is the first guest appearance that you're going to have. You're going to be like a recurring guest.
I would love to be. Okay, Bex, I agree with everything that you said. I want to touch on a couple things that stood out to me in a wrap-up kind of way that I thought were really moving and really right. So when Jimmy Kimmel acknowledged that fundamentally at the end of the day, this town is a union town, I loved that. It really struck a chord after these two major strikes, and it looks like there's going to be this IATSE strike this year too. Striking for basic rights, for all of us. And that extends beyond people in the entertainment community, but sort of overall. We all are in the craft of making movies and making something that is ephemeral and sort of is an art, and it's a luxury in many ways, right? The things that we get to do. But I think so many of us at our heart, what are we looking for? We're looking to tell stories, to connect with people, and to connect with people because we care about people and because we want to be doing the right thing, not living above other people, but living with them and side by side. So I thought his reminder of that was very special. I hope that continues. We've talked about, I really do hope they continue to bring actors previous award years on. I hope they do that for directors. I hope they do that for producers. I also loved that there was genuine humor in the award show this year. The John Cena moment, maybe that didn't totally work, but I love that it was sort of over the top and not it just went for it in the same way that I'm Just Ken just totally just balls out, just absolutely went for it. And so I think, the movies that we're talking about, they took big swings this year. And I think this award show was interestingly, it was a look back towards the past, which I love. Legacy and history is very potent for me. But it also was really fun and funny. And I feel that is a really, it was not stuffy. And I think that's 100%. A hard balance to strike.
Yes.
And so I feel I don't know, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's lean into being genuine and appreciating why we're here. And also, let's have some fun.
I mean, I will just say, we didn't even talk about the Emily Blunt, Ryan Gosling moment, but to me, like, they should have a film. Like, let's remake When Harry Met Sally with those two. Like,
they have a movie coming out.
Do that? How did I miss that? Maybe I did know that. But is it like a proper comedy or is it like an action film?
It's a proper comedy action film. I think it's called The Fall Guy.
Okay. Oh, right. Of course. Okay. But they were so good.
Genius.
Pitch perfect, genius, just like such talents, such comic talents. And I totally agree. I agree with every single thing you both just said. And what I'm hopeful about is that we are separating streaming and theatrical, and that there is room for both to be completely successful, and that those two things should be separated.
Sure.
I think part of the reason that Poor Things and Oppenheimer and even Barbie did as well as they did at the Oscars is because they were proper theatrical films.
Yeah.
And that they were treated as such. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we didn't even talk about Maestro and Killers, but at the end of the day, those movies are streaming movies. And even though they have proper theatrical lives, they're right next to Suits and like the latest like Netflix rom-com on my For You list. And I'm like, who cares? You know what I mean?
Super interesting observation. And I think you are spot on with that.
And so I was talking to a filmmaker yesterday, and it's like the streamers are going to go in one way or the other. They're either going to be like, we don't give a shit. We're making so much money. We don't need to make these big theatrical films with huge filmmakers.
Sure.
Or they're going to go the opposite way, and they're going to be like, we got to double down. If we want to continue to work with like the best talent in the world, we've got to treat them in the way that they want to be treated. And I would say like this Doug Liman thing with Roadhouse, it's like these filmmakers, they want to be in theaters. No matter how much we're beating it out of them, that's not the trend of the world. They want to go into theaters. They want to be treated as such. That's how they grew up. Even like the young generation coming up, they want to have a proper film experience and be treated with care. And I think the problem with the streaming era is there's no way to treat everyone with care. Yeah. And so anyways, I'm very interested to see how the next like 2 years goes.
Yeah.
But it's going to go in one way or the other.
Well, I mean, just to call out a couple more movies that were not streaming and went theatrical, but also were smaller films that got a lot of Academy notice. American Fiction.
Yep.
That was a theatrical film. Zone of Interest.
Yep.
Theatrical. Anatomy of a Fall. Like, these movies could all have been, if they were on streamers, they could have said, okay, but those movies all stood out. And I think you're totally right. It's because they're, you can't replace that experience of like
past lives.
Past lives.
Yep.
Going, totally right.
Yep.
Going to a theater, watching a film. It's a like back to that word community, like it's a communal thing that we all do, an experience that we share that is irreplaceable.
Riva Marker, just an inspiration, besties always, and just like thank you so much for coming on. You're gonna be like Reese Witherspoon on Friends. You're just gonna like come back every couple weeks, every couple months, and we'll just like do a wrap up of like whatever the summer season.
Let's do it.
You know what I mean?
It.
Okay.
Yes.
Love you so much.
I love you so much. I love being here. Thank you guys.